it's Cara. Welcome back to my channel at Cara.inhousegreen. Hope that everybody's doing okay. And in front of us is my Phalaenopsis Schilleriana. I'm showing this because this is my first time blooming of this orchid. And if I'm not wrong, I had this orchid how many years now? I think about between 3 to 4 years, and it was just a tiny plant when I bought this one. Those are my two growth of leaves, and if you could see the second one, it produced a leaf seems like it's double its size. This orchid lives in my dining area. And what does Phalaenopsis spike to bloom? I think everybody knows it. It's introduced them to a bit low of temperature, not particularly the light. It's introduced them to a low temperature, perhaps as low as 20 degrees Celsius. But saying that, I don't have a thermometer where I'm in my dining room where mostly my Phalaenopsis lives, but this dining room is not really that very cold, but it has its cold moments because of the window. No, I mean the door, the glass door, so it can be cold at night time, especially winter time. So when this orchid started to open the flowers, I was so excited to sniff, just to smell its scent. But for a few days, I can't distinctly notice any of it. But after some time, I think it's just today, not after some time, it's just today when I really dived into my nose into this blooms, and then I could distinctly determine that there is a scent of this orchid. It's like powdery scented, quite nice really, and it's not overpowering, you know, not that type of orchid that it's can be too much like my Hoya australis. My god, can be very powerful scent, but this is quite a nice perfume orchid, and it's just only 3 that it produces. I don't expect it that much with the tiny leaves that it is. I'm happy that it produced bloom. In fact, this orchid could produce a bigger leaf than this that I have. I've seen it massive leaves. I'm much interested to this orchid because this is originated from the Philippines, and I remember when I was younger, we have this one and plastered on a coconut tree where we live, and then the Philippinensis as well, which is the white one, which I have, but I don't think there is a scent of that one. It flowered to me twice and I cannot smell anything at all, but this I can. It's not a big flower. I don't know if it would be bigger than this, I'm not so sure, but this is just, I think it's just a medium size flower. And if you see the inside, it's blow my mind. It's just so beautiful. It's totally different from the ordinary Phalaenopsis that we buy, and it's a bit of open in there. Amazing, beautiful orchid. If you have followed me a bit some time, mostly I grow my orchids in semi-hydroponics, so this is one of them. And let me let it out from the pot. Oh, if I can. Yeah, manage with one single hand. So if you see that this is an orchid pot, it's not homemade. I normally do, like I put some hole on the side of the pot, you know, with bottomless, there's nothing, it's, you know, there's no hole at the bottom. That's what I'm trying to say. So I have watered this plant and it's not a lot left in there. This really orchid can be very thirsty, if possible, do not leave your orchids very dry, as what happened to me. If you could see, some of the roots there died. I find this orchid quite thirsty. So if you could see the roots, some of them are not leaving at the end, but some of them are. So I'm not really into obsession with all the roots should have the pink tips, but as long as my plant is happy, I am happy. So with my fertilizing, if you have, as I said, I use this a focus fertilizer. I can't find anything else in here. So I use that every week, every time I water the plant. To tell you the truth, if it's the growing thing, as we all know, Phalaenopsis don't have really, like we say officially or written down, that they do have resting period. As for my experience growing Phalaenopsis, I've noticed that they just grow all the time. So what I do is I always use a growing fertilizer, and I soak them with that one. I do normally overnight, and sometimes I forgot after a day, and then just so suddenly realize that my plant's been soaking for more than a day or two. So yeah, so I soak them preferably overnight with the fertilizer, and then I flush them with rainwater. If they are in growing period, but if they're doing like producing a spike, which you all know, I've already mentioned this as well from all my previous videos, I use as well the focus blooms. So I have that both type of fertilizer. So that's what I do. And then if like this, that it's still flowering, I use the flowering fertilizer continuously to support the bloom, because obviously it's taking energy from your fertilizer. I don't know if that's what the norm with other growers, but this is what I do. If they're still on their blooming period like this, I use the blooming fertilizer, and at the moment they stopped, and that's when I start with the growing fertilizer. Or sometimes if it stopped, I give it a bit of rest concerning about the fertilizer. I just give them some plain rainwater. But then if I notice that there is a slight growing from there, which you could visually see, or sometimes if the spike will not die off, and then you could see a bit of a spike of growth on those nodes, and that's when I continue again with my blooming fertilizer. Or the other, if it's growing, that would be the growing fertilizer. So I hope I'm not confusing you all lot. So what I have put them in the reservoir is plain rainwater, no fertilizer in it, as it might cause damage to your root tips. It's, orchid can be very roots of the orchids can be very sensitive to it. So this is just a show and tell concerning about this Phalaenopsis. This orchid can be a good addition to your collection of orchids. It is, and I don't think it's so hard to look after if you grow Phalaenopsis and then it grows to you well. So I recommend in this orchid. But the side note, it's very slow growing than the normal Phalaenopsis that you will have. So if there is more that you want to adopt, you could always comment, say something, and obviously we could just a bit of information, help each other in growing our orchids. So I think this is it, guys, and goodbye and God bless, and please be kind to one another. Thank you. Bye. She is pretty.